Welcome to the Silhouette YouTube channel. My name is Kelly Wayment with FindingTimeToCreate.com. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel so you're notified immediately of any new content that we release. Let's go ahead and go into today's project. So today we're going to be making a card, and this is a fun one because it has some miniature 3D flowers on the front. It's a great all-occasion card. As far as supplies, you will need a piece of dry foam that you can poke the wires into that we'll be using. We'll need some cardstock, so you'll need 3 colors of some kind of floral colors for 3 different colors of flowers, and some green for the leaves, and then you'll want some pieces of letter-sized cardstock cut in half, any color that is going to be the base for your card. We will use some craft glue and some yellow acrylic paint. We'll use a piece of 24 gauge floral wire. This works best if it's green paper covered. You'll need some needle nose pliers with a cutting edge. We will use a little bit of washi tape, and we'll use the Silhouette scraper tool and either the Silhouette spatula tool or a ball shaping tool, and then a soft surface that you can use for pressing if you're using the ball shaping tool. We are going to use the Silhouette portrait machine today, and we'll use the cutting mat and the auto blade. So let's go ahead and go into the software. Here we are in the Silhouette Studio software, and you can see that I have set up my page setup. So I've got the portrait, but of course you can also use a Silhouette Cameo. Just make sure you have the correct machine selected for your machine, and then the cutting mat you are going to use, and your media size. I'm going to be using scraps of paper on the full mat, and so I'm actually going to set this to the cutting area, so a width of 8 inches and a height of 12 inches. If you were using a Cameo, you might want to put 12 inches by 12 inches. And then I'm also going to decrease the transparency of the mat so I can see the grid lines below, and I know where I can put my scraps of cardstock. In the library, we're going to choose design number 350763. It's this miniature flower box. We're not going to use the whole design, but we will use the 3 flowers and some of the leaves that are in this. So I will double click to open, and then I want to drag everything off to the side, and I'm only going to pull over the few elements that I need. So I'm going to make 1 pink flower. So I'll need to ungroup this. Just right click, it brings up a pop-up menu for ungroup. I can bring over a pink flower, and I want to make sure I get the green parts to that pink flower. I want 1 of these flowers. Again, right click, ungroup, drag it over, make sure I've got the greenery that goes with that flower, and then 1 of these flowers. Again, right click, ungroup, bring that over with its little green leaf. Okay, and then I want to change the color of the flowers to match the color of paper so I don't get confused. It doesn't actually matter what color they are on the screen because I'm cutting them from colored cardstock. But it just helps me remember what colors I'm using. So again, right click and ungroup to release that green sepal, and right click and ungroup for that flower, right click and ungroup for this flower. Okay, so I'm going to do this flower. I actually am going to do in pink. This little spiky flower, I'm going to go over here to the upper left corner that has my fill colors in the quick access toolbar, and I'm going to change that to a purple. And then I'm going to cut this flower, the smallest single flower, from a yellow. So again, the fill colors in the quick access toolbar. All right, so I've got these 3 flowers, and then the greenery, I'm going to cut all from the same color of green. Now the paper that I have, they're all in 3-inch by 3-inch squares. And I'm just going to cut 1 today. You might want to cut a whole bunch of these to make more than one card, but for the interest of time, I'm just going to cut one of each flower today. So I'm just going to organize all of the green pieces. They just need to fit in this 3" by 3" area, and you can see as I zoom in that with the grid marks you've got the 3" by 3" area, so my cardstock for that will be big enough. And then again, I want to put all these pink ones so they fit in a 3" by 3" space, and the purple ones, those will fit in 3" by 3", and then I can just put this single yellow flower in the bottom right corner. So now that I have that all set up, I know that I can just put my cardstock on my mat to match what I have on my virtual mat here. And let's go into the send panel. For the cut settings, I'm just cutting 65-pound cardstock, and since it's all the same weight, I can cut it all at the same time on the same mat. So my favorite setting for medium weight cardstock, for 65-pound cardstock, is actually to use pattern paper medium. It says 65-pound. And then if your blade's really sharp, you can probably use a depth of 3. I'm going to go ahead and change my blade depth to 4. My force of 30 is good, and I'll usually cut it between a speed of between 5 and 10. Okay, so that looks good. If you have not cut your particular paper before with your blade, you may want to do a test cut. I've been cutting with mine, so I already know that the settings should be good at this, but do a test cut if you need to. Okay, so that's really all we need to do in the software. Once I have my paper loaded onto my mat, I can just click send and send that, but we will switch over to putting that actually on our mat. All right, so here is my portrait mat. Just peel off the liner, and I will grab my colors of paper. So remember, we put the pink flowers in this 3 by 3" area in the upper left. We put the purple over here in the upper right. We put the yellow in the lower right. And then all the green sepals and leaves were in the lower left. So now all I need to do is load that into my machine and click send in the software. And make sure when you're loading a portrait mat that there are 3 grooves close together. You're going to do the leftmost groove, and then these other 2 grooves will actually line up exactly with these other marks on your mat. Okay, so that's loaded, and I will just click send in the software. All right, so we'll just double check and make sure that that cut well. I think that's pretty good, so we'll unload it. And we'll pull these off of the cutting mat. So I like to flip my mat over, make sure your surface is clean. Flip your mat over, and you can use the spatula tool to kind of help you get these little tiny pieces off safely. I think everything is cuter in miniature. That's why I love this card so much. getting just a little bit of peeling on my paper for my mat there, but that's okay because it's not interfering with the design itself. Make sure, because of these flowers have little tiny holes in the centers, make sure you don't leave those on your mat because they can interfere with future cuts if you have little pieces stuck to your mat. So make sure you get those cleaned off. And make sure I replace my cover to keep that clean. All right, so we'll just stack these flowers for now, and if they have a size order like this pink one, you've got small and large pieces, but we will actually set these aside because we're going to work with our wire to prepare it first. All right, so we have our pieces, and we will set those aside. And we're going to take our piece of floral wire, and this we want to cut into about 3-inch segments because we will probably trim it off a little bit at the end. We want to make sure that they are big enough to make the flower and then also trim it. And so to actually make the centers of these, we're going to add just a bead of hot glue to the tip of each flower. So just kind of swirl it in. And here's where you will stick it in a piece of dry floral foam and let that cool for a few minutes. So those just become an easy center for your tips of these small flowers. And I do have some pieces that I have already let cool. And so these, once they've cooled down, we need to get them yellow. So you can either use a paintbrush, or what I've done is just get a little bit of paint at the top and you can just kind of dip it right there. Only the top really matters. You're not going to see the underside of it. So just dip it in a little bit of yellow paint, and again stick those in your foam to cool or to dry. All right, so once those are dry, you just need 3 centers. You have them ready to attach to your flowers. And so we'll do a little bit of shaping of our flowers. If you are using the Silhouette spatula tool, you can just face it down and just give a little curl with your thumb and the spatula tool, so it'll give kind of a curved shape. And if you do have a ball shaping tool, these are used for like cake fondant and paper flower shaping and also clay, so they're easy to find, these ball shaping tools. Just press and give it a little roll on some soft craft foam, and you can see that that just kind of curls the flower up really quickly. So that's for the pink. You can do the same thing for this little spiky flower. And also the tiny little yellow flower. All right, and then we'll give a little bit of shape to these leaves also. Just a quick little roll. And these longer leaves, or these leaves instead of the sepals, don't really need to be shaped too much right now. We can do that when we're ready to attach to the wire. So now, to turn these into flowers, just take one of your stems and you'll work with the smallest piece first. You'll slide the smaller piece on first and grab a little bit of, I like this white glue in a needle tip applicator. You could do it with hot glue, but you'll probably see it for flowers this small. Move to my next larger petal and add a little bit more glue down here. So there's a layer of glue between each stack. And when I put the petals on, I want to make sure that they're not lined up exactly. I want the petal row in front to kind of divide that split from the row under it. And then these last two pink petals are the same size. A little bit more glue, slide it on and try and make sure that they offset a little from the row before. A little bit more glue. And then finally, this largest sepal here is the one for this flower. Find a little bit of glue and then just press that on. And this can go back in your floral foam, or you can just set it aside if you're just making a few. Okay, next stem, we'll do this purple flower. Same thing, just a little glue at the base. And slide it up. Next size up. Add a little bit of glue. Just press that on, and then this one, the green sepal for that is kind of the spiky green one that matches the flower. Okay, that's our second flower. And for the final flower, it's just that single layer. Just add a little bit of glue and put it on there. You may need to, depending on your glue, you may need to hold it a little longer. Try and keep that center as centered as possible. And then this sepal is the last one with the little 3 parts to it. We'll stick that on. Okay, and then we just need to add leaves to these flowers. So all I will usually do for these leaves is put it on my soft foam and then just give a little press right down the center with my spatula tool. And might not even need to do it on, probably not the skinniest leaf, but maybe this small one. Okay, so this flower, this leaf I'm going to stick on the yellow flower. And again, depending on your glue, you may need to hold it longer. And this is why you want to have a paper covered wire, so that glue is sticking paper to paper. You won't have as much luck if it's just a bare wire. All right, I think I'm going to put these in my foam. We'll give them time to dry again. You only need a little bit of glue at the base, and this is a glue that dries clear, and I'm putting it not too far down the stem, maybe a centimeter or so. These are definitely a flower that do not have to be extremely realistic. The charm is in just the miniature size. You just don't want the leaf to be sticking up a lot higher than the flower, so you put it down lower on the base so your tip of your leaf is kind of equal with the base of the flower. All right, and as long as I don't touch those should dry nicely. All right, so now we just need to stick them to the front of a card, and I found that any card color is nice. So this is just an 8.5 by 11 inch letter size piece of paper that I've just cut in half with a paper trimmer. That's a standard card base. So now I will just fold that in half to make my card front. Scraper tool makes a great crisp folded edge. And I'm going to use these flowers that have dried already. And so we're just going to stagger the height a little bit, and I'm going to bend these just a little bit forward, not too much, just to give them a little bit of life. And then we'll just stagger the height a little bit. So I'll just do the pink a little bit at the highest level, and then the purple, and then the yellow. You kind of want them to face a little bit either outward or forward. And then we'll stick these on with washi tape, but I want to make sure that these ends are not having any frayed edges or metal exposed, and so I'm just going to trim those with my wire trimmer right there. And if you want, you can add a little bit of glue to make sure that these stay on, or you can just add the washi tape. So we'll just kind of center that in on the card front, and I'll just pick some washi tape that looks good with that card. And stick it down. So this makes a great hand-delivered card. It's got a lot of personality to it. It can work for any occasion, and it's just such a cheerful thing to give away. Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you put in the comments if you would like to see other flowers or other tutorials and projects that you'd like to see me do. And thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.